Welcome back to Bayou Time. I'm Jacob DeGate, and I'm now joined by Lieutenant Blake Tabor of Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, it's my understanding that the Sheriff's Office conducted a couple of investigations and made a couple of arrests for some local offenses. Can you tell us about the first one?
Sure. These particular cases are some pretty disturbing cases. The first one being on Friday, September 15th, our patrol division was called to an address on the west side of Houma in regards to some pretty disturbing information that was found by a set of parents in relation to their 14-year-old child. Ultimately, that led to the discovery of that child being involved in a sexual relationship with what appears to be a 38-year-old male by the name of Sergio Palacios Hernandez. You obviously see him pictured here. After the initial investigation took place, of course, our patrol officers did a fantastic job weeding through that evidence. Ultimately, our Special Victims Unit, or as referred to them as SVU detectives, were called in to quickly aid in that investigation. Ultimately, they conducted an initial interview with that juvenile female who also confirmed that the sexual relationship was taking place with Hernandez. So ultimately, some additional investigation took place and is still sort of ongoing with that case. But ultimately, we quickly located Mr. Hernandez at his residence, and he was ultimately arrested for third-degree rape. He is currently jailed at the Terrebonne Parish Criminal Justice Complex, where he remains on a $500,000 bond that was placed on him by local judges.
Okay, never a good situation, but luckily, he is behind bars for now and waits his trial, and we'll have to go from there.
Absolutely.
Okay, can you tell us about another disturbing case that
Sure.
Sheriff's Office was involved in?
So this one happened on Sunday, September 17th, shortly after noon or 12 o'clock. Our patrol division was called to a residence in the 100 block of Petite Rue Drive. Again, this is not an address or an area of town where we frequent very often, but when family members arrived, they found their elderly relative in some pretty bad shape. It appeared that the elderly gentleman had been attacked, ultimately even determined that he was stabbed several times during the course of a disturbance. So we quickly got some medical attention there for the male. He ultimately was sent to an out-of-area hospital by helicopter. Should be a pretty good indicator of how serious the injuries were. The good news is that he is recovering from his injuries and he is actually in stable condition now. So it appears that the scary time of determining whether he was going to pass on is sort of past us now, and he's stable. So that's a good thing. As our patrol division began to investigate that matter, they quickly learned from the relatives that arrived there that Blair G. Piku Jr., who's a 32-year-old male, resides at the residence. You see him pictured here. He resides at the residence with the elderly gentleman, and he is a relative. Of course, we're not releasing the actual relationship of those two, but they are related. So as the investigators began to investigate that, we quickly learned that the St. Charles Parish Sheriff's Office had subsequently stopped Mr. Piku on an unrelated traffic stop. When they stopped him, they were able to determine that he had several outstanding warrants through our jurisdiction. So he was actually in custody at that particular time, which was sort of uncanny. Of course, our detectives immediately responded to St. Charles Parish, where they were able to interview Mr. Piku, and he quickly admitted to being involved and being responsible for the battery of the elderly gentleman. So ultimately, he was charged with attempted second-degree murder. He was jailed at the St. Charles Parish facility for a period of time. Since the press release has come out, Mr. Piku has been remanded to our custody, which happened on September 19th, shortly after 2 p.m. He is currently jailed at the Terrebonne Parish Criminal Justice Complex, where he's on over $1 million bond for that particular charge. Again, This one is also an ongoing investigation. It's likely that some additional charges may surface in relation to this case, but that just remains to be seen.
Yeah, certainly, I guess a disturbing incident, but luckily it didn't turn out worse,
Absolutely.
with the victim surviving. Of course, it's a sad situation anytime you have, an elderly victim, and especially when it's, a relative of the person that's being accused of the crime. It's a difficult situation for that entire family, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And, again, when we deal with these types of cases, we always ask for patience and privacy when it comes to the victims. Again, due to his age, I can only assume that the recovery time is going to be much more extended than someone of a younger age. But we are grateful that he is recovering and he seems to be in good spirits at this point.
Well, it seems that, the sheriff's office did some good work with these investigations, and luckily it led to a couple of arrests, and there's no outstanding fugitives out there, and they're all behind bars while they await trial. So.
Absolutely. And look, and then these two types of cases, I mean, these are some pretty serious cases considering what we do on a daily basis, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that they were both where they need to be and where they belong, so we're happy about that.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Lieutenant, for joining us. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Stay tuned for more right here on HTV.